I feel very lucky that I know some amazing people. And this week, I'm excited to have Elliot Kay, who's a very good friend of mine. He's a speaker coach, runs an amazing business. He emceed our conference recently, and he's going to be speaking at our event in Dubai in January. Not just that, he's also going to be at our Scottish event in March. So, in this episode, I get to know a bit more about Elliot, what he specializes in, and how it might help you. We all need to improve how we communicate, how we speak to all the people that are in our world. So, whether you deal with people one on one, whether you speak one to many, pay attention, grab a notebook, and let's get started with Elliot. I feel like I'm here in the presence of speaker royalty today. Not only is Elliot a professional speaker, he's an author and a speaker coach. Hi, Elliot. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm not sure about the royalties, but you may call me sir instead.
Thank you. So we've known each other for a few years, and we got to know each other as a result of an introduction from a mutual connection.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect fit for this story because we're talking about networking and referrals. Now we're recording this just a couple of weeks after our big annual Circle Networks event, Circle Networks Live in Birmingham, where you upseated me.
I did what?
You upseated me. You pushed me out. So last year at our first event, I was the co-MC with Catherine Hyde, and then this year I wasn't even allowed on stage hardly, apart from 10 minutes because you took over. No, I did that because I asked you to do it. and one of the things that I realize is I've got a certain skill set. I've got a particular set of skills, and it is not in bringing the energy as an MC to an event. And you did an amazing job.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you've got quite a broad repertoire. How did you get into all of this stuff?
Into the speaking?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. There seems to be a theme. Lots of people interviewing about me about that particular time of my life. So I won't go into too far back, but it was around 2010, 2011. It was a typical, at the time I was learning to be a coach. And, it was old school learning where you had to work with people over a period of time. So I had to work with 15 people over 90 days to get certified versus just attend a weekend and then you get a certification. They're like, hey, you're a coach. And as part of that, I got invited to a seminar. And it's a typical 5,000 people, big room type 3-day event. It wasn't Tony Robbins before people think it's Tony Robbins. And then I went in kind of typical ignorant fashion. I can do that. And so I did. And so after that, I enrolled on a speaker training course, which I ended up working with them for 5 years. I launched what is now Speaker Express, but was called Pony Express Speakers Club with my co-founder at the time. So that's still going over a decade later. And that's how I got into it. It's a very simple moment of going, I can do that and going after it versus I can do that and wanting or hoping someone knock on the door, go, do you want to be a speaker? So that's how I got into it as well.
Okay. And speaking as a speaker is different to emceeing an event.
Correct.
What do you get from being an MC at an event?
So the MC or the host really brings it together. So a lot of people think, how hard can it be? But actually, there's a lot of prep work that needs to be done. You need to get to know the speakers in whether that's through researching them or whether that's actually, for example, a good friend of mine, she's an international MC and she'll make the time to actually connect and actually have calls with them so she can introduce them in the best possible way. So as the MC or the host, you bring it all together. So before, you're involved in the briefing, during, you're gluing it together, you're getting the other speakers ready. You have to fill in time if things go wrong or there's technical issues. So there's a lot of thinking on the feet. If you introduce a speaker right, then they're going to come onto a warm reception. If you introduce a speaker in the incorrect way, then they can walk into a very hostile or a very cold reception. And that comes back at you. So your role is to really get the stage ready for the speakers to come on so they are embraced. And I've seen both. Obviously, I've seen it done very well and I've seen it done very badly. And then, of course, then the speaker's up against it. and then when they come off stage, you'll normally get an earful. So
Yes.
yeah. So that's the role of a host versus a speaker.
Okay, and I'm very excited. So we've had you hosting our event.
That is correct.
We're gonna have you as a speaker. So what are you going to be speaking about at our upcoming event?
I'm going to be speaking about something I feel like I've been fighting for, especially during the pandemic, although I don't have to fight for it as much anymore, is how important speaking is. This isn't the title, by the way, but this is what I'll be speaking about, is how important speaking is as part of your marketing, as part of your strategy, because it's massively underestimated. The results can be immediately and very big. And a lot of times people, they just don't integrate it, or it becomes another thing they want to do versus as part of their marketing strategy. So that's really what I want to talk about at the upcoming events I'm going to be speaking with Circle at.
I love it, right? And I think one of the things that I enjoy about our in-person conferences, events, is that the speakers spend the whole day. They're accessible, so
Yeah.
you don't just see somebody on stage for their keynote. You have the opportunity to get some pictures taken with them, to pick their brains, to just be around them. And I think one of the things is spending time with people is more of a precious commodity now than ever before. And you and I have both been to enough events where big name speakers come on, they're whisked on stage by people, and then they disappear, and that's it. There is no time to get to know them or speak to them. And I think that's what's unique about our events. Now that might change in the future, but right now my plan is that people spend the whole day with us, and that people can get to know people. It's a little
Yeah.
bit different. It's a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah. Very different. I think also it depends on the speaker, because some speakers I know will gladly, they often spend the day, because it's also about getting to know the audience. Because then, as a speaker, you can adapt your talk and address things that you've noticed, you've seen, get in jokes, things like that. There are speakers that will whisk in, whisk out, and that's their choice. But yeah, I
Yes.
think some of the stuff I've seen at circles, the speakers there the whole day. They're there with their notepads. They're there to learn just as much um, as they are to speak. So that's what's really good about it as well.
Okay. One of the questions I want to ask you is about
Yeah.
how does networking help you with your business?
I think this is again an element of speaking that people underestimate, including professional speakers. And I think, the business of speaking is a relational business, right? People will go for people, bookers, conference organizers, even if they've seen you, they tend to lean towards people they know, like, and trust, and easy to work with, I should add in there. And I think a lot of people that want to speak or are speakers, they often skip that. They sit in this place where they're like, here's my show, here's my this, you should book me. And I don't know if you've had people approach you to speak at your events like that. And there's no investment in
Yeah.
relationships. What networking allows you to do is be at the forefront of people's mind. And it might not be necessarily right away. And again, that's something that people underestimate, is the deferred result versus immediate result. So, with speaking, if you build relationships, then you're the forefront of people's minds, right? And I think the last 3-4 years, I've spent a lot of time building relationships with, with yourself, with Jamie McCann, who you know very well, with various people in the space without wanting anything, just building the relationship. On the contrary, giving first. And now that I'm, where I am with the awards as well, which you're judged as and just generally my positioning is elevated, I'm finding they're coming back to me, not because they want something, but because we have a relationship. So, and I think that's what you get from networking as a speaker. And you cannot underestimate that importance. Just before the conference, I had 3 people turn, the Circle Live conference, 3 people turned to me and go, can I work with you? I need to work on my speaking, because we've built that relationship. I know, like, and trust you. It's you I want to work with. So as a speaker or aspiring speaker, networking, like I talk about speaking being part of your marketing, networking must be integrated as part of your strategy, even if you're an introvert. And that's okay. You can be an introvert who networks. It just means you need longer to get there, longer to kind of build yourself up and longer to recover. I get that your brain is wired different, but that's what networking gives me. So when people need a speaker coach and circle, right? they turn to me. When people are going, could you host this event? Oh, I've got this speaking opportunity. I think some people are hesitant approaching me as well because they think I might charge them lots of money. But what I do first is have the conversation. And then if it's something I want to do and I want to do it, then often I'll do it and we'll discuss the rest. But then a lot of people put me in touch with people to host events, or people like, oh, could you do this talk? Or they'll reach out, go, I need a 7-minute speaker. Right. And I just think if you're not in it, you're never going to win it. And if you an entitled mindset, then it's never going to come to you the way you want it to. Networking must be integrated in every speaker's strategy, period.
And likewise, I say to everybody who networks, you've got to be able to speak and know what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
I've I've seen people who are very prepared that have got, and I encourage everybody to have 2 or 3 short presentations that you can do at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And then I see some people that think, "Oh, that's quite easy. I can just do it on the fly," and they fall, they crash and burn. And the more polished and prepared you are, like with all things, the better the results that you get. And investing some time and money in learning how to speak and what you're going to speak about and how you deliver it and structure it is money very well spent, because it's going to benefit you for the rest of your life there, isn't it? Now,
Yeah.
you you've obviously been doing this since sort of 2009, 2010. What kind of opportunities have come to you from introductions, word of mouth, recommendations?
Yeah. Look, I think recently, generally speaking, um, bureaus have approached me as a result of introductions, right? So it's like, this is Elliot Kay, and then suddenly they're like, oh, we want to talk about representing you. Where let's say 3 years ago, I was like, oh, I'd love a bureau to represent me, right? Please represent me. Here's my material versus here's an introduction. This guy is, you want to check him out. And then it's like a different conversation. So those are some of the, definitely recently, those are some of the referrals I've been getting. Obviously, I now, especially within from Circle as well, when even their clients are looking for someone that can help them speak, because I get referrals like that. But I'm happy to refer too. It's a two-way thing. When I heard of another networking group shutting down, I thought of you. I was like, listen, you two need to talk. And again, there wasn't, I want a percentage, give me, I could operate that way. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Some people are deal makers and they make their
Yeah.
money from the deals. But and again, you and me have talked about, you like, Elliot, anyone you introduce to Circle, you get this amount. I'm like, look, I'm not interested in that relationship. And the reason for that, by the way, I mean, again, there are people I'll have that relationship with, is because I feel sometimes it adds a layer that can get dark.
Yeah.
Oh, you owe me this person. No, I introduced that person. No, I introduced it. No, I met, no, and I just don't want to get involved in like whoever. And it's the same with the partnerships where we do with the awards. We don't take percentages. We don't get involved in that, basically. So I think it's purely, does this benefit the person I'm going to introduce them to? Is this introduction to Jamie a good introduction? Period. So those are some of the referrals I've had. I know you've referred people to work with me, especially when they need help with. I mean, you reintroduced Emma Henderson to me, who's an incredible force for nature. Who's also speaking at Circle Live next year, I believe. You
Yes.
know, and sometimes a reintroduction works very well as a
Uh,
referral.
and we all have networks. So whether you go networking, we all network. And I say this to people all the time. There's a skill set to learn, and you've got to have the right mindset. And that's what you're talking about. You're happy to make introductions for people because you know in the long term reciprocity will benefit you and that people are going to pay that back. And that's the way that I work. This year has transformed my business because I made it my intention to pass more referrals than ever before.
Hmm.
And I have reaped the benefits of that. Now, I don't pass a referral to somebody and then expect them to pass me a referral back. I do it because it's the right thing. And if somebody asks me about, do you know what, I'd love to be a great host at a conference, well, I'm definitely going to pass them your way because you do a great job and you're a coach and you can help people to do that. So it's a no
Hmm.
brainer for me. If I get some people that approach me that go, oh, if you could just introduce me to this person, but it's not the right fit, then I just don't do it. Even if they offer me some, and I don't take money for referrals because I don't work that way. it's got to be the right fit. I had a conversation with somebody recently who's a speaker, and I was talking about it. So, in my previous job, we used to book a lot of speakers, paid speakers for big events. And I said, I would go out my way not to use an agency or a bureau. I always felt like I would be better picking the speaker that I wanted for the event. So, I would usually, at the end of an event or when someone's just come off stage, thank them, but I'd bring up in conversation, who would you recommend? Now that you've been here and you've met our audience, who do you think would be a good fit for our event next year? Because whilst you were great, I need a different speaker next year. I'm not going to have the same person speaking every year. So I would always ask the speaker to recommend somebody. But I don't find that that's commonplace in the speaker world.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this before. I think a lot speakers can be very much like actors. They can be very guarded around the information they know. So obviously, a lot of times, actors won't share auditions or things like that in case someone gets the role, right? And there's a little bit that goes on with speaking. Very similarly, if they can't get it, then no one should. And I think actually, I work very hard to change that. I run a monthly networking group myself for speakers to refer speaking opportunities. Because if you can't do it, you might as well refer someone you know. And a good example of this is, and now a couple of years ago, I got a gig at big law firm in Birmingham. Funnily enough, there seems to be the center of many things.
It's the middle of the world now.
Yeah, apparently. No, that's not true. Devon is, but we won't go there right now. And my friend I'm talking about, Lavelda, she had a gig, but she couldn't do it. She's like, I'm out of the country. Can you do it, Elliot? And I said, sure. Now she never asked for this, but I offered. I said, look, make the introduction, and if I get it, I'll give you 10%. Right? That's me initiating it. And I got the introduction. We had the call, and the person will, say, yeah, I've checked you out. I love your energy. You're a referral from Lavelda. You know, would you do it? And then we're on to budget. And so we agreed the fee. And Lavelda walked away £500 because she made an introduction. So do the maths yourselves, people. Um, and that's the power of passing it on. She couldn't do it, so it didn't mean no one can do it. She's like, look, let me introduce you to Elliot. And now every time she can't do something, she feels I'm a fit, she'll put me forward. Maybe because there's no return, but actually mainly because she thinks I'm one of the right people for the job.
Yeah.
So I think as a speaker, actually you referring can benefit you in the long run, not just financially, because it does come around. And then when I go and do something, I go, hey, Lavelda, could you do that? Or I'll turn to someone I know. And I do this anyway when I hear a speaking opportunity that I think's right for someone. I'm like, look, I think you should go for this. A prime example of it was this year. This speaker called Harris. They are non-binary, and the person putting the event on needed someone that's non-binary that experienced bullying. And so I saw that and I was like, Harris, I think this is for you. Put her in touch. And then they got the speaking gig and they were very grateful. I didn't ask about payment, anything like that. And as a result, I know the event organizer now wants to talk to me about speaking and hosting. So that's a conversation we need to circle back to. But there's no point in hogging it. Like, no one benefits if you hog it. You don't get it because you can't do it. You referring someone actually is a really cool thing to do. And it's really, I would say that's the right thing to do. But not everyone thinks like
You just reminded me, I had someone get in touch with me to pick my brains about speakers a few years ago. And I had a conversation with them, and it was their big annual conference. And I said, what kind of speaker do you want? I said, and they described it. And I was like, okay, so I've got these two different people. And I was like, at one end of the scale, it was Brad Burton.
that. Oh yeah.
And I can't remember who was the other one. And they went, oh no, Brad sounds like the person that we want. So I introduced them to Brad. And I don't know Brad particularly well, but I knew him well enough from what he talked about. I'd seen him speaking. And so I made the introduction. He rang me after the event and thanked me and said, that's the best speaking gig that I've ever had.
Wow.
Now, most people, in my experience, don't thank people when they win a client from a referral. He didn't stop there, though. He then got my address and sent me a crate of beer as a thank you gift. And it's the token gesture that means that makes the difference, and a handwritten card, and it's the little things that make the difference like that. So
Yeah,
it's not necessarily about referral fees or paying somebody, it's the relationship, the experience, and the little things that you do that go a long way. That stands out in my
absolutely.
mind. Now that would be from 2018, 2019 that I did that. I still remember that conversation.
Yeah,
So
they stick in the mind.
it's the little things that make the difference. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, yeah, I speak, I don't necessarily need referrals because I've got a bureau, it can go a long way. There are people out there.
I think you muted yourself there by mistake.
I did something.
There
I
you
just raised my hand.
go.
There are people out there that don't like to use speaker bureaus, that prefer recommendations from people. So Elliot, I would ring you and ask you, right, who have you seen on stage? The other
Hmm.
thing to do, the AV teams who run conferences, they deal with speakers all the time, and their experience, I'll ask them, what speakers have you seen recently? Who's on that can speak on this topic? What would they like to work with? Because if they're a bit arsey with the AV team, then they're probably not the right kind of people to work with. So their reputations precede them, and some people don't even realize this. So you can build up a great network of people to help you find opportunities without you having to do anything. That's the bit that I love about referrals.
Yeah, yeah. No, they're very powerful and underestimated. Um, I think that's why, Circle Networks is so strong, so powerful. And I think, if I may, just a very quick example, if we take Paul, is it Paul Sullivan? Is that his last name? Just ask Paul.
Paul McGowan.
Paul McGowan. McGowan? Got to
McGowan.
get
Paul McGowan.
McGowan. There we go. Paul McGowan, people. I just know him as Paul, right? It's not often I have to think of his last name, but let's take him as a prime example, okay? So this is a guy, financial advisor, um, you know, he's got better. Is he like world class speaker? Not yet. I hope you're listening, Paul. You need to talk. But you know what he did? From the period I became a partner to Circle, is I saw him every week, probably 2-3 times a week, grabbing those 7-minute slots for months. It's not just he did it a week, like months. I'd say, pull, this again. Da, 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 da. What happened as a result of that? Okay. Sure, he got more polished, but he trebled his turnover, right? Now, I don't believe, I mean, I need to talk to him, that Paul is harboring an ambition to get on Wembley stage as a speaker. Maybe he does now. But what Paul really grasps is the power of those 7 minutes, right? So much so that I actually took business to him as a result of hearing him speak. I've turned to several people in the network after hearing them speak. I worked with Rachel for a period as a coach. So I think people underestimate the power, or they have this expectation it's got to be a big slot. On the contrary, it's what you do with the time you have that matters. And if you add value, right? If you can hit the pain of the person and give them a solution, you can do that in 7 minutes, right? Then you win. So I think Paul is almost like your kind of ultimate success story of Circle. And there's many others. That's the one I can think of. You can probably think of 20,
Yeah.
30, 40, 50, right? That's the one that sticks out for me. And that all comes from showing up. And he also refers. So it's not just take, right? And by the way, he never pushes. That's the other thing. He'll explain and go, talk to me, right? So, but he also refers people as well. So listen, if you're not already got networking as part of your strategy, have it. Show up ready to serve. Grab the opportunities, whether it's 7 minutes or 45 minutes. Make sure you're adding value. Make sure you're hitting pain and you're giving solutions. Then you will benefit from speaking, period.
Yes. Yes. That's the perfect place to end on. Networking is a great opportunity. Almost every networking event is an opportunity to speak. So if you're a speaker and you want to demonstrate, people might not be able to come and see you at a corporate event, but at a networking event, there are always speaker opportunities. We have over 160 speaking opportunities a month at Circle Networks. They're all virtual. they're all accessible. Then we run bigger events right up to our big annual conference. Next year, we've got 3 in-person conferences. We're going to be in Dubai on the QE2 in January. We're going to be up in just outside Inverness in March, and then we've got a big annual event again in Birmingham. So there's a lot of speaking opportunities in Circle Networks. What that means is there's a lot of opportunities for people to see and hear you speaking that can then go and refer you. To me, it's a no-brainer. Now, that's just in Circle Networks. There are loads of networks out there. I might be a little bit biased and think that we're quite good, but there are loads of opportunities out there. So if you're an aspiring speaker, invest in your speaking skills. Speak to someone like Elliot. He's very good. I've worked with Elliot. We collaborate on a speaker training course. But invest in your speaking skills. Be prepared. Don't just turn up and wing it, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. It's got to be a good one. It's got to be a good one. And I would encourage you to connect with Elliot as the last piece of advice here. So, Elliot, if someone wanted to get into your world, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn, if you look for me, Elliot Kay on LinkedIn. So spelled the proper way, Elliot and Kay. And then also, if you want to, if you're like, look, I'm not on LinkedIn, I don't care for LinkedIn, then by all means, you can just drop me a message, Elliot, Elliot, at ElliotK, my name.com. And I think that's the best way to do it. So feel free to drop in and, whether it's to book me to speak or whether you want help with your speaking.
Brilliant. So let me just end with, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you think it would be useful, then click the subscribe button and share it with some other people. Who do you know that might be interested in learning more about networking, or in this episode, learning more about speaking and the opportunities that it can get to change your business? Thank you very much, Elliot. I've loved having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If you want to find out more about Elliot, please go and connect with him today. He's a great guy. He shares a lot of value on his social media, runs events, and if you're interested in perfecting your speaking and improving how you come across, what you need to do, I'd highly recommend that you get in touch with him and find out more about how you can work with him. As always, please hit subscribe if you're not already subscribing, and share this with someone you think it might be useful. Take care.